Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another TEW 2020 experiment video here. As today we have a little bit different, starting in the home stream again. As you can see, we currently have two games loaded, two saves available, starting AEW and WWE. A key difference for both, if I just go into it, on the AEW save, if I go to AEW, you will see employed in their roster is AJ Lee, currently employed by AEW, contracted as a wrestler, a full-time wrestler out of retirement, with her current stats in the game that she has. And if I then back out and then I load up WWE here, and then I go to the rosters, I go to WWE, and then I have to scroll down for this one. There she is, AJ Lee, currently employed by WWE, active wrestler out of retirement again, because today's episode is looking at what if AJ Lee returned to pro wrestling, came out of retirement today, 2022, the January update of the Real World Chronicles mod, Monday week 1, January 2022. What if AJ Lee came back? And a bit of a comparison as well, because we're looking at what if she came back in AEW, joining her husband CM Punk there, or versus what would happen if she came back in WWE, returning to the company she retired in, where she was a multi-time Divas champion, the longest reigning, well, the second longest reigning now after Nikki Bella, but longest reigning for a time. What would happen? How would she do in AEW? How would she do in WWE? Comparing the two, seeing where she does better. AEW, you could say, having a weaker women's division currently, so maybe she'll do better there, but WWE, we don't know how she'll get on with the, you could maybe say, higher quality of superstars they've got there for her to fight with. An interesting experiment suggested by the sect. Thank you for the suggestion. And once again, if anyone has any suggestions for experiments they'd like to see, then leave a comment down below. Let me know. Always open to hearing ideas on what you want to see. But without further ado, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to simulate forward 2 years in both of these saves, and then we will go through both of them. We'll look at how AJ Lee gets on. We'll see where she does better, and we'll look to fully answer the question, what if AJ Lee returned to wrestling in 2022, coming out of retirement, in AEW versus WWE. Let's get on with it. And here we are, Monday, week 1, January 2024, 2 years later, starting off looking at the WWE save. AJ Lee out of retirement in WWE. See how she gets on. So let's just jump on over to WWE. And I mean, if I scroll down, she'll pop up. There she is, AJ Lee, still employed, still a wrestler. Her pop's gone up a little bit. I mean, no headlines, no news to mention or talk about. Title history wise, no titles. Match history wise, she's had a lot of matches. She has fought 111 times, 79 wins, 32 losses, a majority wins, but I mean, they're all kind of non-consequential, you know? I mean, starting off tag team matches with Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks, losing to Becky Lynch and partners, beaten Baszler, lost in the Rumble, Sasha Banks winning the Rumble, we love that. Defeated Queen Zelina, lost to Becky Lynch at Elimination Chamber in the Raw Women's title match. Had a series of wins, losing an A-tag match to Becky Lynch. WrestleMania, we had Becky Lynch versus AJ Lee in a rematch, and Becky Lynch came on top. Probably what you would get if AJ Lee came back right now. It probably would be Becky Lynch, AJ Lee at Mania, but AJ Lee not coming out on top there. Becky Lynch winning, and then WrestleMania Night 2, Asuka and AJ Lee defeated Shayna Baszler and Queen Zelina in a cage match. So, not winning the Raw Women's title, but getting a WrestleMania victory. More victories, only losing in tag matches, really. Her first singles defeat that I can see that's not a title match for Becky Lynch is to Charlotte Flair at SummerSlam. So kept reasonably strong to be fed to the Four Horsewomen before forming a tag team called Ladies Night, AJ Lee and Bianca Belair. I mean, a banging tag team, unrivaled on the mic, you'd have to say. But no women's tag titles for them, sadly. And then, just continuing on her business, staying out of the title pictures. In the Rumble, Bianca Belair winning the Rumble in 2023. As AJ kind of just floats around, winning on Raw, winning singles matches, being drafted to SmackDown post-Royal Rumble, winning Looney losing in tag matches again, breaking up Bianca Belair, a tag match at WrestleMania Backlash. Bianca Belair and Mandy Rose defeating AJ Lee and Sonya Deville. Her first women's title match since WrestleMania in 2022, WrestleMania 38, is on SmackDown in May of 2023. Charlotte Flair defeated Sasha Banks and AJ Lee to retain the SmackDown women's title. And then a defeat to Bianca Belair following it up, and from there, you know, going back to the same stuff. Bianca Belair defeating her a few times before Money in the Bank. AJ Lee, Doudrop, Ripley, Belair, and Gonzalez. Sasha Banks winning the briefcase, though, fair enough. And then, yeah, just continuing on with it. AJ Lee only losing in tag matches, and then in singles matches, I think she's only lost to Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Bianca Belair. So, even without like huge championship success, I mean, not winning any, only having 3 title matches, I want to say. 2 for the Raw Women's, 1 for the SmackDown. AJ Lee, I mean, having a good time with it. Kept relatively strong. Putting over Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, Charlotte. I mean, what's the women's division's been like? Becky lost it to Liv Morgan at SummerSlam. Liv Morgan lost it to Aaliyah at the Rumble, her good friend. Nice to see. Aaliyah lost it to Shotzi at Money in the Bank. Shotzi lost it to Sasha Banks, who has held the title for 84 days. So, you know, actually having a proper reign for once. While the SmackDown Women's title was held by Bianca Belair, it went Charlotte, losing it at SummerSlam to Asuka, losing it at the Rumble to Rhea, losing it at WrestleMania to Charlotte. Charlotte defeating Ripley for a title at WrestleMania again, oh my. And then Charlotte losing to Becky. Whilst women's tag wise, Bianca Belair and Doudrop are your current champs. Carmella and Zelina Vega, Queen Zelina vacated to Sasha and Bayley to Bianca and Doudrop. So the women's division's doing well. AJ Lee doing okay in WWE. I mean, like I said in the opening, WWE has such a stacked women's division, but AJ's still doing really well. Can still get really strong throughout, even if she's not winning titles, having some great matches, doing well. But one of the questions of this video is not just what if AJ Lee came out of retirement, it's also how would she do in WWE compared to AEW. So let's return to the main screen and let's open up our AEW save. And here we are, Monday, week 1, January 2024. Same date, same amount of time has passed, 2 years. This time, AJ Lee over in AEW, All Elite Wrestling. And CM Punk is their major star. Unsurprising. AJ Lee, I have to scroll down a little bit. So she's gone down a little bit, but let's click on her anyway. AJ Lee, yep, currently employed, currently a wrestler. Popularity increase, skills doing really well. Title-wise, 1 title. The AEW TBS Championship, which she held for 3 months and made 6 defenses. So she won more gold in AEW at the very least, you can say. Match-wise, over all the years, she fought a lot more as well. 112 wins, 39 losses in 151 appearances. I mean, fighting a lot. Not, once again, a really positive record. A height rate match on 86. Can I find the 86 amongst all this? I assume it's with Britt Baker, would be my best guess. There it is. Britt Baker and AJ Lee defeated TJ. Yeah, Britt Baker was involved. I didn't think they'd be teaming, but she was involved. AJ Lee debuting, going through people. Her and Tay Conti losing by DQ to Team DMD. And then on an episode of Rampage, Britt Baker defeating AJ Lee to retain the women's title. Before AJ dropping down a division, a month later on Dynamite, losing to Thunder Rosa in a tables match, as Thunder Rosa retains the TBS title. Having another shot at Britt Baker on Dynamite later in February, losing in a tables match. Before on Rampage that same week, losing to Thunder Rosa in a TBS title match. A lot of, in the title picture heavily AJ, but being used to put over Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker exclusively in those title matches. Oh, wrong button. Let's just get back to that screen. Oh boy, scroll down. There we go. Yeah, losing to Thunder Rosa again, losing to Britt Baker again. My God. A lot of singles wins, tag wins, some tag defeats. kind of the same as WWE. A lot more title matches. I mean, look at this in Double or Nothing, defeated Kieran Hogan and Nyla Rose in a triple threat. And then in June, Dynamite, Ruby Soho, the Women's World Champion, defeated Britt Baker and AJ Lee to retain her gold. And then later on that week in Rampage, Ruby Soho and AJ Lee going one-on-one for the title. Ruby Soho retaining. On Dynamite the next week, AJ Lee challenging Anna Jay for the TBS title. Anna Jay retaining in a tables match. The next week on Rampage, Ruby Soho defeating AJ Lee in a ladder match now to retain the Women's World title. Into July, a few weeks later, Ruby Soho defeating AJ Lee in a ladder match again to retain the Women's World title. AJ Lee and Ruby Soho, I mean, I guess a feud makes sense between the two over that Women's World title, but Ruby Soho picking up countless victories in stipulation matches again and again. Britt Baker, the TBS champion, into August, where Britt Baker defeats Killian Kane, AJ Lee and Mercedes Martinez to retain her title. Ruby Soho defeating her again in August. Hikaru Shida, the TBS champion, into September, defeating AJ Lee. AJ Lee, I think, has fought every single TBS champion so far and lost every single time. But she eventually gets that gold. Can I find it? I'll keep scrolling until I do, because there's not much else to mention. The Bunny is Women's World Champion. I'll say there's not much else to mention. The Bunny defeats Thunder Rosa, Yuka Sakazaki, and AJ Lee in a ladder match for the Women's World title. I'll assume Thunder Rosa was the champ. Heading into that, I'll double check the champs in AEW after as well. With the Bunny winning it on an episode of Rampage, just after AJ Lee's highest 86 on Rampage the week prior, with Britt Baker in that tag match with TJ. Into 2023, just looking for, there it is, AJ Lee defeats Tay Conti and Jamie Hayter for the AEW TBS title at Revolution 2023, getting her first title since the Divas title, since her retirement, the TBS Championship, her first defense against Layla Hirsch, Serena Deeb, and Abaddon in a Fatal 4-Way on Dynamite, and then another defense on Dynamite in May, and then didn't defend the title till May, a couple months later, defeating Tay Conti to retain her title, and then at Double or Nothing, defeating Rio and Thunder Rosa to retain her title. On Dynamite in June, the first week, defeating Yuka Sakazaki, Thunder Rosa, and Mei Suruga to retain her TBS title. She goes 2 months without defending it, and then she cannot get in the ring without defending it. And then on Rampage, defeating Leva Bates in the tables match to retain it. On Rampage the next week, defeating Ruby Soho in a cage match, reigniting that feud they had over the Women's World title for the TBS title this time. And it's AJ Lee coming out on top before losing the title the next week on Rampage to Layla Hirsch. Layla Hirsch winning it off her, and no titles after that. She fought Hikaru Shida for the Women's World title in July on Dynamite, losing. Rematch with Layla Hirsch for the TBS title on Dynamite in July, losing. And then another Women's World title match with Hikaru Shida, lost by DQ at All Out. Another match featuring Ruby Soho as well, adding the Ruby Soho AJ Lee dynamics to the Hikaru Shida title fight on a Rampage, Hikaru Shida retaining. And then a final Women's World title match with Hikaru Shida on Rampage in December, and a defeat as then Tay Conti defeating AJ Lee to retain the TBS title in December as well. AJ Lee heavily in the title pictures in AEW, as you'd probably guess. The Women's World title in AEW, the TBS title, Thunder Rosa the inaugural champ, losing to Anna Jay. Thunder Rosa the inaugural champ, she beat AJ Lee, losing it to Anna Jay, who beat AJ Lee, losing it to Britt Baker, who beat AJ Lee, losing it to Hikaru Shida, who beat AJ Lee, losing it to Britt Baker. I don't know if Britt Baker beat AJ Lee during that reign, it wasn't long, and then vacating it, AJ Lee winning the vacant title, holding it for 3 months, losing to Layla Hirsch, who loses to your current champ, Tay Conti. So every single TBS champ is either AJ Lee or someone who during their reign beat AJ Lee, which a big honour, I guess. For the Women's World title, Britt Baker losing it to Ruby Soho after a year-long reign. Ruby Soho holding it for 4 months before losing it to Thunder Rosa, who held it for 5 months before losing it to the Bunny, held it for 5 months before losing it to Hikaru Shida, who has held it for just over 5 months, breaking the 5-month curse. As overall, to answer the question, what if AJ Lee returned to professional wrestling in 2022? I mean, she's done very well. Had some great matches, shown potential to win titles, put over a lot of talent. What more could you want? Whilst in the AEW versus WWE side of things of it, you'd have to say did better in AEW, I guess. I mean, one thing I didn't check, I mean, I'll just check how her overall rating was. Her average rating in AEW was 76 with a highest of, was 72, my mistake, with a highest of 86. And if we go over to WWE and we have, I'll just type her name in actually. We get AJ Lee. So 72 and a highest of 86. This was 68 and highest of 84. So yeah, on match quality wise, on her usage being used more, I mean heavily on Rampage and Dynamite. I mean WWE just on one brand, in AEW on Rampage, Dynamite, Dark, all of it. Maybe it makes sense she'd wrestle more, but still being used more in the title pictures as well, and putting over a lot of talent. I would say she did better in AEW, but you may think differently. So please do let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think she did better in AEW? Do you think she did better in WWE? Let me know your thoughts, as that's going to be the end of this experiment video today. Like I said in the beginning, this video was suggested in the comments, so whilst you're in the comments, let me know how you think AJ Lee did and who you think she did better for WWE or AEW. And let me know any experiments you would like to see me do. I'll be happy to check them out. And leave a like if you've enjoyed. I hope you have. Please subscribe to the channel for more, and thank you for watching.